Hi, I'm Holly Andrews, Integrative Nutrition Health Coach and Stress Recovery Coach. Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to the kitchen. We are moving on from our pumpkin series into full-on November, and it is chilly, and I have been craving soups and stews and those really warming and comforting and grounding meals. And so today I have for you a creamy squash soup with a lemon thyme oil drizzle. Now, I love this. It is a really thick, kind of hearty soup, almost like a bisque. The beans that we're gonna talk about in a minute give it a creamy, kind of almost bisque-like texture once it's all blended up. So it is just gorgeous and comforting, and let's get into it. So of course, when we think fall, we think squash, right? And I was gonna make something with a delicata squash, but I have trouble finding them where I am. So I kind of pivoted and I'm using butternut squash instead. So the base of this recipe is a roasted butternut squash. And of course, butternut squash and squashes in general tend to be orange, not all of them, but tend to be orange. So we're still getting that beautiful beta carotene from the squash that our body turns into vitamin A. And we're also getting a ton of soluble fiber, which is great for cortisol balance, for just cleansing our bodies in general. We need about 30 grams of fiber per day if you're a woman, more if you're a man. So I am always aiming to get that 30 grams of fiber, and this butternut squash definitely helps contribute quite a large bit to that fiber count. A squash also has vitamin C and magnesium in it, both things that we need for immune support, for stress resilience, so just all kinds of goodness in the squash here. I've also got some white beans in this recipe. Now I used low sodium canned cannellini beans, which cannellini beans are white kidney beans. And so by adding those into this recipe, we're giving our bodies some plant-based protein, more soluble fiber. Also, those things are gonna help with the glucose spikes, are gonna help keep our blood sugar steady, and again, help keep our cortisol balance steady for lots of good energy. They're rich in vitamin B, which we need for energy, and magnesium, which again, all of those things help contribute to our cortisol balance and our stress resilience and stress response. So, and then when you blend them up in this recipe, that is what gives us the almost bisque-like texture of this soup. So love that, okay? We've also, of course, got some onion and garlic in this recipe, so lots of good prebiotic fiber there. And then we're topping this off with a lemon thyme oil drizzle. And why are we doing that? Just to brighten the soup up a little bit, but also we're getting some healthy fats from the olive oil, some really good omega-3s. The lemon, of course, is going to add a little bit of vitamin C. Just that lemon zest helps stimulate our senses. And then the thyme is just beautiful because it helps support digestion and immunity. So I'm using some dried thyme in the actual soup itself, but then I'm using fresh thyme in my lemon thyme oil drizzle that goes on top. So let's talk about throwing this recipe together. The first thing I did was I set my oven to 400 degrees Fahrenheit while I got my butternut squash peeled and cubed and seeded and all of that. I needed about 4 cups of butternut squash total. I may have had a little bit more. I didn't measure, but I got a medium butternut squash and I peeled, cubed, seeded it, the whole business. And then I tossed it in some olive oil and roasted that butternut squash in the oven for about 25 minutes just to help it cook and get a little bit caramelized and bring out some of that natural sweetness in the squash. So first thing I did was got my squash going. While my squash was roasting, I cut up half an onion and got that nice and diced, and I made my lemon thyme oil drizzle. So I got a couple tablespoons of really good quality olive oil. I zested about a teaspoon of lemon zest, added that into the oil, and then got about half a teaspoon of fresh thyme leaves. Again, I didn't measure, I eyeballed it, but that's what you're aiming for. And I stirred that up to make sure that all of those flavors had time to really infuse while the squash was roasting and the soup was cooking. And so by the time I got ready to drizzle it on, all those flavors had had a really good chance to fuse and meld together. Once the squash was done, I pulled it out of the oven and I got my soup pot going. So I put a little bit of olive oil in the bottom of my soup pot and then heated that up. And once it was ready, I added in my diced onion and my garlic. Got those going till they're cooked them until they were fragrant, a little bit translucent, and then added everything else into my pot, including my white beans, my butternut squash, a teaspoon of dried thyme, half a teaspoon of salt, and a 1/4 teaspoon of pepper. And then I got my butternut squash and threw that in there. And then finally I added 3 cups of chicken bone broth. Now I did use boxed bone broth today because I'm out of my homemade, but you can check my homemade chicken bone broth recipe. It's so simple. And I'll drop that a link in the description below. But got that all mixed together in the pot, brought it to a simmer and let it simmer for about 10 minutes. Once it was done simmering, I turned off the eye and let it sit there for another 10 minutes just to cool down before I use my immersion blender on it. If you don't have an immersion blender, you can use a regular blender. Just be super careful and only fill your blender up no more than halfway, just because that soup is going to be really hot and I don't want you to burn yourself or have a really bad accident. But I had my immersion blender. I actually moved it off the stove to do this just because my microwave and my immersion blender tend not to mix, and I have trouble using the immersion blender while the pot is still in the stove. So I moved my pot off the stove over to my counter here and use my immersion blender to get it really nice and blended and smooth and creamy, and it just turned out so pretty and so beautiful and thick and yummy, and like I said, bisque, almost like a bisque. Once I had that done, all blended, and I checked it for chunks of butternut squash, and I did have a couple left in there, so I had to go back in and do some more blending, but I got it all blended up. I got some into my bowl, and then I drizzled some of that lemon thyme oil on top, and here it is. Kind of hard to see on camera, but I know you can see it from the pictures. So it smells amazing, and I can't wait to try it, and I hope you enjoy it. Be sure and check out some of my other fall stews and soups from last year's videos on the channel. I've got a hearty fall autumn chili recipe on there and some other like roasted carrot soups. I made the roasted carrot soup this week for myself earlier. I found some beautiful carrots at the farmer's market and just made that for myself. Love it. So lots of great stews and soups from last year on the channel, so go check those out. We'll drop those links in the description below as well. Be sure and check those out, and I really hope you enjoy this soup recipe. You can also check me out, of course, at Holly Andrews Coaching across all the social media platforms, Instagram, Facebook, obviously here on YouTube. But you can check out my website for all of the programs and ways that you can work with me, including my recipe vault, which is exclusive to members only. Recipes in there that you're not going to see anywhere else. So in fact, November's 10 recipes just dropped, so you can go check those out. I've linked them in my Instagram story highlights, what the recipes are, obviously not the recipes themselves. Check those out. You can do lab testing with me, cortisol testing, GI map testing. Check out my online digital course. It's self-paced. And then of course, I've got my one-on-one coaching programs as well as my book. Both of those do really deep dives into nutrition and stress resilience and how we can make our bodies more stress resilient when we are already burnt out. So check out all of those resources, and until next time, I'm Holly Andrews, and I believe you can heal your stress from the inside out.